Myra loved the quiet. After long days in the colony, filled with work and the constant hum of machines, she often found herself walking to the greenhouse under the twin moons. The soft silver light streamed through the glass walls, falling over rows of glowing plants. Some flowers shimmered like tiny lanterns, and others seemed to hum softly in the night air. Myra had learned to care for each one carefully, speaking to them as if they could understand her. The greenhouse was her secret world. Inside, she could forget the worries of the colony, the strict schedules, and the curious glances from other people. Here, the plants were patient. They did not ask too much. They grew slowly, quietly, reaching toward the soft light. Myra liked to imagine that they absorbed her thoughts and her hopes, carrying them inside their leaves. On this particular evening, Myra knelt beside a small violet flower that had just opened. Its petals glowed faintly under the moons, and she whispered softly, "You've waited so long to bloom. I'm glad you finally did." The plant seemed to lean toward her hand, as if it could feel the warmth of her touch. She smiled, brushing dirt from her fingers and standing to survey the greenhouse. Rows of plants glowed like tiny stars, and the gentle hum of the lights mixed with the quiet sounds of leaves brushing together. As she straightened, Myra noticed movement near the door. At first, she thought it was her imagination. But then, she saw a shadow lingering just beyond the glass. She stepped closer, heart fluttering, and caught sight of a young man she had sometimes seen around the colony. His name was Ryan. He always seemed quiet, thoughtful, and careful in the way he moved. He was looking at her now, his eyes soft and curious. Myra felt a sudden wave of shyness. She had never expected anyone to watch her here, in her private sanctuary. "Hello," she called gently, unsure if he would hear her or leave. Ryan stepped back, raising his hand slightly in a careful gesture. I didn't mean to startle you," he said, his voice low but steady. I like to see the plants. You care for them so well." Myra blinked, surprised. "Thank you. I didn't know anyone noticed." She smiled softly, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. There was something honest in his tone, something that made her heart feel lighter, even if she did not yet know why. For a moment, they just looked at each other through the soft glow of the greenhouse lights. Myra felt a strange warmth, like the light of the moons had wrapped around her heart. Ryan seemed just as careful with his words as he was with his steps. Slowly, he lifted one hand, pointing toward a cluster of plants she had been tending. "That one, it's unusual. I think it might bloom soon," he said quietly. Myra stepped closer to inspect it. "Yes, I've been waiting for this bloom for weeks. It's a rare flower from Earth," she explained, her eyes lighting up. "I thought it might not grow here, but, look." She gently touched the soft petals. "It's perfect." Ryan nodded, a small smile spreading across his face. "You have a gift," he said softly. "I've seen many gardeners, but you make the plants feel alive." Myra's cheeks warmed. She had never thought of herself as special, just someone who loved plants. Yet, hearing his words made her chest feel tight in a happy, strange way. She turned toward him, curious. Do you like gardening too?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. He nodded again. "I enjoy it. But I have never seen anyone care for plants like you do. It's calming to watch you." They stood in the greenhouse together, the twin moons casting silver shadows across the glowing leaves. Myra felt her loneliness lift a little. Perhaps, she thought, there could be someone who understood her world, a world of quiet, careful love for life, no matter how small. As Ryan finally stepped away, promising to leave her to the plants, Myra watched him go. The feeling of being seen lingered like a soft light in her heart. She knelt again beside the violet flower, brushing her fingers over the petals. "Maybe tomorrow," she whispered to it, "I won't be so alone." The greenhouse hummed softly, the flowers glowing brighter under the moons, and Myra felt, for the first time in a long while, that something beautiful might be waiting for her even in the quietest corners of the world. The next evening, Myra walked to the greenhouse with her usual quiet steps. The colony was settling into the soft rhythm of the twin moons, and the air smelled faintly of alien blossoms mixed with the earthy scent of soil. She had spent the day working in the communal gardens, but now, under the silver light, she was ready to return to her secret world. As she approached the glass doors, she noticed movement near the far corner. Her heart gave a small flutter. Could it be Ryan again? She paused, unsure whether to call out or stay silent. Ryan was there, kneeling beside a strange cluster of plants she had never seen before. The glow of the flowers lit his face softly, and he seemed completely absorbed in his work. He looked up as she stepped closer. "Ah, Myra," he said with a small, polite smile. "I hope I'm not disturbing you." "You're not disturbing me," Myra replied, stepping inside. I I didn't know anyone else was coming tonight." Ryan shook his head. "I like the quiet here too," he said softly. "I wanted to see the flowers under the moonlight. It's different from the daytime." Myra nodded, feeling the truth in his words. The greenhouse did change under the moons. The glow of the flowers was softer, almost magical, and the gentle hum of life seemed louder at night. "I like it at night too," she admitted. "It feels peaceful." There was a small pause, comfortable and unforced, as if both were savoring the quiet. Then Ryan looked at a pale blue flower that had not fully opened. "That one," he said gently, "I think it might bloom tonight if you care for it the right way." Myra knelt beside it, brushing the delicate petals with her fingers. "You really know about plants," she said, surprised. "I thought I was the only one who could tell when they were ready." Ryan smiled, a little shyly. "I've learned a few things. Watching someone care for plants teaches you a lot. You make it easier to notice small things." Myra's cheeks warmed. There was something kind and honest about him that made it easy to talk. She hesitated, then said, "Would you like to help me?" Ryan's eyes lit up. "I'd like that," he said quietly. Together, they knelt side by side, checking each plant and adjusting soil where it was too dry. Myra found herself talking about Earth, where the flowers originally came from, and Ryan shared stories about his people and the alien flora they had always grown on this planet. As they worked, Myra realized how much she enjoyed his company. There was a gentle rhythm in the way they moved together, a silent understanding that did not need words. She found herself smiling more freely than she had in weeks, and even the shy glances they exchanged felt comfortable rather than awkward. Suddenly, a tiny bell-like sound came from a cluster of silver leaves. The flower Myra had been tending had begun to bloom, its petals unfurling slowly under the moonlight. Myra gasped softly. "It's beautiful," she whispered, leaning closer. Ryan leaned beside her, careful not to crowd the space. "It's perfect," he said softly, almost as if the flower reflected the moment between them. Myra felt a flutter in her chest at his words. For several minutes, they simply watched the bloom together, quiet and content. Then Myra spoke, almost in a whisper, "I never thought anyone would understand why I love this place so much." Ryan's eyes met hers, warm and honest. "I think I understand," he said. "It's not just the plants, it's you. The way you care, it makes this place alive." Myra's heart felt light. She wanted to say more, to reach out and share the feelings she did not yet understand herself. But the words stayed in her throat. Instead, she smiled and touched the glowing petals again, letting the silence speak for her. When it was time to leave, Ryan stepped back toward the door. "I should go," he said softly. "But I'll come again tomorrow." Myra nodded, her smile lingering long after he had gone. "I'll be here," she whispered to herself, brushing a hand over the bloom that now shone brighter than before. As she looked up at the twin moons, she felt a strange, happy anticipation. The greenhouse had always been her private world, but now it seemed larger, filled with possibilities she had never imagined. And perhaps, she thought, under the moonlight, new connections could grow just like the flowers she tended with patience, care, and quiet wonder. The greenhouse was quiet except for the soft hum of glowing plants under the twin moons. Myra had arrived earlier than usual that evening, carrying a small basket of earth seeds she had been nurturing. She wanted to plant them in a new section, but she was also secretly hoping to see Ryan. As she carefully dug small holes for the seeds, a familiar shadow appeared at the doorway. "Hello, Myra," Ryan said, his voice soft, carrying a warmth that made her heart lift. He stepped inside, brushing a stray leaf from his sleeve. "I thought I might help tonight." Myra smiled, motioning for him to join her. "I'm glad you came. These seeds are new. I've been worried they won't grow in this soil." Ryan knelt beside her, examining the tiny seeds with careful hands. "They will," he said confidently. "You have a way with plants. They seem to know they're in good hands." As they worked together, planting and watering, Myra found herself telling Ryan small details about her life. She spoke of her home on Earth, of cities filled with bustling people, and of quiet places where she had walked among flowers that grew wild. Ryan listened intently, nodding and asking gentle questions. Myra had never felt so understood before. Then it was Ryan's turn to share. He spoke of his family, who had tended alien gardens for generations, passing down the knowledge of how plants carried memories. "Some of my people believe that when you care for a plant, a part of your thoughts and feelings stay inside it," he said, his eyes reflecting the glow of the greenhouse. "The plant remembers you." Myra paused, her hands stilling over the small seeds. She looked at Ryan, fascinated. "So, you mean the flowers and trees here, they remember the people who care for them?" Ryan nodded. "Yes. That is why this greenhouse is special. Each plant has a story, just like the people who nurture them." Myra smiled softly, imagining her tiny seeds carrying her own hopes and dreams. "I've never thought about plants that way," she admitted. "I just like to care for them. But maybe they care for me too." They worked in silence for a while, letting the greenhouse glow around them. The twin moons shone through the glass, casting silver patterns across the leaves. Myra felt a quiet sense of happiness, the kind that comes from being understood without needing to explain too much. Ryan, too, seemed at ease, his calm presence making the greenhouse feel warmer and more alive. After a while, Myra spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. "Do you ever feel alone, even when people are around?" Ryan looked at her, his eyes soft. "Sometimes. But here, With you, it feels different. It's quiet, yes, but also full of life. Like the plants, I can be myself without fear. Myra's heart warmed at his words. She had been lonely for so long, and yet here, in this glowing greenhouse, she felt connected not just to the plants, but to someone who truly cared. As the night deepened, Ryan reached out and gently touched a leaf, smiling at the faint shimmer it made under his fingers. "The plants notice," he said quietly. "They respond to care, and they respond to people who are kind." Myra watched him, feeling her admiration grow. "I think they respond to you too," she said softly, smiling. "You have a gentle way with everything, even with me." Ryan's cheeks warmed slightly, and he looked away, then back again. "Maybe we can teach each other," he said. "I can show you how my people care for plants, and you can show me how yours grow on Earth. We could learn together." Myra nodded eagerly. "I'd like that very much." The two of them stayed in the greenhouse until the first pale light of dawn touched the glass. The twin moons were setting, and the plants glowed faintly in the dim light. Myra felt a soft happiness settle in her chest. For the first time in a long while, she didn't feel entirely alone. She had someone to share her world with, someone who understood both her love for plants and her quiet heart. As Ryan finally rose to leave, he gave her a small, shy smile. "I'll come back tomorrow," he said. Myra nodded, already looking forward to the next evening. Alone now, Myra knelt beside the tiny seeds they had planted together, brushing her fingers over the soil. "Maybe they'll grow faster now," she whispered. "Not just because of water or light, but because someone else believes in them too." And for the first time, Myra realized that some growth wasn't just about plants. It was about hearts. The colony was buzzing with excitement. Once every year, when the twin moons aligned perfectly in the sky, a festival was held to celebrate the light and life of their world. Lanterns were hung across the colony streets, and music floated softly from small stages where humans and aliens alike played instruments together. Myra had been hesitant to attend. She loved quiet evenings in the greenhouse and feared the crowd and noise. But when she arrived at the greenhouse that evening, she found Ryan waiting for her outside. His usual calm expression held a spark of anticipation. "I thought you might like to see the festival," he said softly. "It's beautiful this year. And I wanted to go with you." Myra hesitated, a mixture of shyness and excitement stirring in her chest. She had grown fond of Ryan's presence, and the thought of walking beside him filled her with warmth. "I'd like that," she admitted. The two of them walked together through the lantern-lit streets of the colony. The light from the moons reflected off the glass domes of buildings and the soft metal of the streets, giving everything a silver glow. Myra felt her heart lift as she saw children laughing and dancing, and older citizens watching performances with gentle smiles. Music from both human and alien instruments blended in a way that was new and wonderful to her ears. Ryan stayed close, occasionally pointing out details Myra might have missed, the way a flower-shaped lantern glimmered with a soft pulse, or how a tiny alien creature danced among the lights. Myra smiled, realizing that seeing these wonders with someone else made them even more magical. Eventually, they reached a small square where a gentle fountain shimmered under the moons. Lanterns floated above the water, casting reflections like tiny stars. Ryan handed Myra a glowing petal, the color shifting softly from pale blue to silver. Myra looked at it in surprise. "It's from one of the festival gardens," Ryan explained quietly. "It's a symbol of trust in my culture. I wanted to share it with you." Myra felt her heart warm. She had never received anything so thoughtful, especially from someone she had only recently come to know. "Thank you," she said softly, placing the petal carefully in her hand. "It's beautiful." They walked slowly, letting the glow of the festival wash over them. At times, their hands brushed, and each time Myra felt a small, thrilling spark of connection. They talked about the flowers in the greenhouse, sharing stories and ideas, but now the conversation felt lighter, filled with laughter and joy. At one point, they paused near a small stage where musicians played a soft, lilting melody. Ryan tilted his head slightly and asked, "Would you like to dance?" Myra's eyes widened, but she nodded. He took her hands gently, guiding her in simple steps. They moved slowly at first, then with a gentle rhythm, letting the music carry them. Around them, the festival continued, but for Myra, the world narrowed to the warmth of Ryan's hands and the sparkle in his eyes. After a while, they stepped away from the crowd and found a quiet spot beneath a large, glowing tree. The leaves shimmered like silver and gold, and the petals of small flowers glowed softly. Myra held the glowing petal from earlier close to her chest, feeling the trust and care it symbolized. Ryan looked at her, his expression tender. "I'm glad you came," he said quietly. I like sharing this night with you." Myra's heart beat faster. "I'm glad too," she admitted. "It's different from anything I've felt before." They sat together in the soft light of the tree, watching the lanterns float across the sky and the reflections ripple in the fountain. The festival felt like a bridge between their worlds, the colony, the greenhouse, and the hearts of two people beginning to understand each other. As the moons reached their highest point, their silver light washed over the square, mingling with the glow of lanterns and flowers. Myra felt a quiet certainty settle in her chest. The bond between her and Ryan was growing, like the plants they nurtured together. Patient, gentle, and alive. When the festival ended, they walked back to the greenhouse side by side, the night air carrying the soft music and laughter with them. Myra felt lighter, happier, and more certain than ever that the quiet moonlit world of her greenhouse was about to become something even more magical. The morning after the festival, Myra woke to a quiet greenhouse. The twin moons had set, and sunlight streamed gently through the glass walls, warming the rows of glowing plants. Normally, she would have felt calm and happy, remembering the laughter and music from last night. But today, a small shadow had settled in her chest, a feeling she could not quite name. The colony had noticed the festival, as always. People whispered about who went with whom, and Myra had heard a few curious remarks. Some wondered why she spent so much time with Ryan, the quiet gardener from the outskirts. Myra's heart ached with embarrassment. She had hoped their friendship could remain private for a little longer. Now, she worried that others might misunderstand her feelings. When she arrived at the greenhouse, she found herself alone. Ryan was not there yet, and Myra felt a strange emptiness. She moved through the glowing plants, touching petals gently, but the usual sense of comfort seemed muted. The flowers shimmered softly under the sunlight, yet her thoughts drifted elsewhere. She realized she had grown used to Ryan's presence, to the warmth of his quiet smile and the ease of their conversations. Without him, the greenhouse felt unusually silent. Ryan, meanwhile, had noticed her absence from the morning rounds and decided to give her space. He worried that she might be upset or uncertain after the whispers in the colony. He missed her, yes, but he also respected her choice to step back. Walking slowly past the rows of glowing plants, he tried to focus on tending to the leaves and soil, but his thoughts kept drifting to Myra, her gentle touch, her soft voice, the way her eyes lit up when she talked about Earth. For 2 days, Myra stayed in the greenhouse mostly alone, avoiding Ryan's visits. Each time she heard him approaching, she felt a mixture of longing and anxiety. She wanted to see him, to hear his words, to feel the calm that always came when they were together, but the fear of what others might think held her back. On the third evening, Ryan finally arrived. He found Myra kneeling beside a small cluster of new blooms, her hands gently brushing petals that shimmered faintly in the dim light. She did not look up when he entered, and Ryan's chest tightened. He waited quietly, hoping she would speak first. "Myra," he said softly, keeping his voice low, I missed you these past days." She paused, fingers stilling over the petals, but she did not look at him. I need some time," she whispered. "I don't want anyone to think. I don't know. I just need a little space." Ryan nodded slowly, though his heart felt heavy. "I understand," he said gently. "I'll give you the time you need. I just hope you know I care, no matter what anyone says." Myra's eyes filled with a mixture of relief and guilt. She wanted to tell him how much she had missed him, how empty the greenhouse felt without his calm presence. But the words stayed in her throat. Instead, she nodded quietly and returned her attention to the flowers. For the next few nights, Myra and Ryan moved around the greenhouse like distant planets. They were near each other, yet separated by walls of unspoken words. Myra tended the plants carefully, whispering to them as always, and Ryan worked nearby, adjusting soil and checking water levels. Sometimes, their hands brushed lightly when reaching for the same tools, and each time a small spark of hope flickered in their hearts. Slowly, Myra began to realize that avoiding Ryan had not eased her fear, it had only made her feel lonelier. She missed the sound of his voice, the way he noticed small things, the quiet warmth of his presence. Her heart ached with longing, and the greenhouse seemed dull without the gentle companionship they had shared. Late one evening, Myra paused beside a small glowing flower, watching it sway under the moonlight. She realized then that her worry about what others thought had kept her from the one person who truly understood her. The whisper of leaves and soft hum of the greenhouse felt like a gentle nudge, reminding her that care and trust mattered more than whispers or doubt. Myra took a deep breath, her heart steadying. Tomorrow, she decided, she would speak with Ryan. She would share her thoughts, her fears, and her longing. For now, she brushed her fingers over the petals of the small blooms, letting the light of the greenhouse remind her of the quiet courage she had within. The twin moons rose outside, casting silver shadows across the greenhouse, and Myra felt a quiet hope bloom alongside the flowers. The greenhouse was quiet under the soft silver glow of the twin moons. Myra walked slowly among the rows of glowing plants, her hands brushing gently over leaves and petals. The air was warm and fragrant, filled with the hum of life that seemed almost alive. She had returned after 2 long days of avoiding Ryan, her heart full of both hope and nervousness. Tonight, she would face him. Ryan was already there. Kneeling beside a cluster of newly planted earth flowers, he carefully adjusted the soil around the roots. The soft light of the moons reflected in his eyes, and Myra felt her chest tighten with a mix of relief and anticipation. For a moment, neither spoke. They simply looked at each other, the silence carrying more meaning than words could hold. I'm glad you came," Ryan said finally, his voice gentle. "I've missed this, missed us being here together." Myra knelt beside him, her fingers brushing lightly over the petals of the small blooms. "I've missed it too," she admitted softly. "I was afraid of what others might think. but being away from you, it felt wrong. Ryan reached out, his hand hovering just above hers. You don't have to be afraid of me, he said quietly. I care about you, and the rest doesn't matter. Not here, not in this greenhouse. The moons, the plants, they all know the truth of what matters. Myra's heart fluttered at his words. She had been holding back, trying to protect both herself and him, but now she realized that the greenhouse had always been their world, quiet, patient, and full of understanding. She allowed herself to take his hand, feeling the warmth and steady reassurance in his gentle grasp. Together, they walked slowly through the rows of glowing plants. The flowers leaned toward them as if sensing the reunion, their petals shimmering softly. Myra felt a calmness she had not experienced in days, a sense of belonging and trust that grew stronger with every step. I was worried I had lost this, Myra whispered, glancing at Ryan. I didn't want to hurt you, but I didn't know how to explain. Ryan shook his head softly, his expression tender. You didn't hurt me, he said. I understood, even without words. Sometimes, caring for something, or someone, means giving space. But it also means returning when the heart knows it's right. They paused by a small fountain in the center of the greenhouse, where water flowed gently over smooth stones, reflecting the moons in rippling patterns. Myra leaned slightly against the edge, feeling the cool stone beneath her fingers. I realized, she said quietly, that I cannot ignore what I feel. Not for anyone, not even for fear. Ryan knelt beside her, taking her hand fully in his now. And I cannot ignore it either, he said. I care for you, Myra. I always have. The greenhouse, the moons, they remind me of the truth every time I see you here. Myra smiled, feeling the weight of doubt lift from her shoulders. The greenhouse was no longer just a place of plants, it was a place of trust, patience, and shared hearts. I'm glad we came back, she whispered. They spent the night together, tending to the plants side by side, speaking softly about Earth, alien gardens, and the small wonders of life. Ryan showed Myra a technique his people used to encourage delicate flowers to bloom, and Myra laughed softly when a tiny leaf shimmered unexpectedly. The sound of their laughter mingled with the hum of the greenhouse, creating a gentle symphony under the twin moons. At one point, Myra paused beside a row of newly planted seeds. Do you think they will bloom quickly? She asked, brushing her fingers over the soil. Ryan smiled, leaning close. With care and patience, everything grows, he said quietly. Just like us. Myra's chest tightened with warmth. In that moment, the fear of whispers, doubts, or misunderstandings from the colony seemed distant and unimportant. What mattered was here, in the greenhouse, under the moons, with Ryan beside her. As the night deepened, they sat together among the glowing plants, hands intertwined, sharing quiet smiles and gentle glances. The greenhouse felt alive with more than plants now, it was alive with the truth of their feelings, patient and steady like the slow, careful growth of flowers under the moonlight. For the first time in many days, Myra felt completely at peace. She knew that whatever the colony thought, whatever doubts had lingered, her heart had found its home right here, in the moonlit greenhouse, with Ryan by her side. The greenhouse had never looked more alive. Flowers of earth and alien blossoms mingled together, their petals glowing softly under the twin moons. Myra walked through the rows, brushing her fingers gently over the leaves. Every plant seemed to hum with life, reflecting the care and attention she and Ryan had poured into them. Ryan appeared beside her quietly, a gentle smile on his face. "They're growing beautifully," he said softly. "Just like us." Myra turned to him, smiling. "Yes, just like us." The months of friendship, small joys, doubts, and reconciliations had all led to this quiet moment. The greenhouse had become more than a place for plants, it was a home for their hearts. Together, they moved to a new section, freshly prepared for planting. Myra carried seeds she had collected from Earth, while Ryan brought small alien saplings that glowed in soft shades of blue and gold. They planted side by side, their hands occasionally brushing. Each touch felt natural, comforting, and full of silent understanding. "This will be our special garden," Myra said, her eyes bright. "A place where both our worlds grow together." Ryan nodded, gently patting the soil around a young sapling. "A garden of two hearts," he said. Myra laughed softly at the words, the phrase feeling perfect. As they worked, they spoke quietly of their dreams. Myra shared stories of far-off landscapes on Earth, of rivers that sparkled in the sun and trees that swayed in the wind. Ryan spoke of the alien forests he had known, where plants moved in rhythms like music and flowers opened only under moonlight. Both listened with fascination, learning from each other, and marveling at how different yet connected their worlds were. Hours passed, and the greenhouse glowed brighter as the moons reached their peak. Myra paused beside a row of glowing blue flowers, watching the soft light dance on the petals. "I never thought I could feel this happy," she admitted. "Not just with plants, but with someone." Ryan knelt beside her, taking her hand gently. "I've always felt this way," he said quietly. "I just needed to learn how to share it. You've taught me patience, care, love in ways I never imagined." Myra's chest tightened with warmth. She leaned slightly toward him, letting the soft glow of the flowers and moon surround them. "I'm glad we found each other," she whispered. Together, they continued planting, talking, and laughing softly. The greenhouse felt alive with more than light and plants, it was alive with hope, trust, and the quiet, steady growth of love. Every seed, every sapling, every blooming flower reflected the bond they had nurtured over time. Eventually, Myra stood beside a small fountain at the center of the greenhouse. The water rippled gently, reflecting the twin moons and the soft glow of the plants. She turned to Ryan. "Do you think everyone else will understand?" Ryan smiled gently, squeezing her hand. "Maybe," he said. "But it doesn't matter if they do or not. This is our garden, our hearts. We don't need permission to grow together." Myra felt a deep calm settle over her. The past worries, the whispers of the colony, the fear of judgment, all of it seemed small compared to the truth she now held. Love, care, and patience were stronger than fear, and the greenhouse was proof of that. Hand in hand, they walked slowly through the glowing paths, pausing to admire a flower that had just bloomed, or a tiny sapling reaching for the moonlight. Myra rested her head on Ryan's shoulder for a brief moment, feeling safe and at peace. He responded with a gentle squeeze, silent but full of meaning. As the twin moons began their slow descent, casting silver shadows across the greenhouse, Myra whispered, "I think we can grow anything together." Ryan nodded, smiling down at her. "Yes, anything. Just like the plants, we'll flourish if we care for each other." And so, under the soft light of the twin moons, Myra and Ryan stood together in the greenhouse they had nurtured. The earth flowers and alien blossoms glowed brightly, reflecting the quiet, patient love that had grown between them. Their hearts, like the garden around them, were alive, full of hope, trust, and the gentle certainty that some bonds, once nurtured, could grow stronger than anything else. The greenhouse, once a quiet place of solitude, had become a home for two hearts. And as the moons shone softly overhead, Myra and Ryan knew that their love, like the plants they cared for, would continue to grow, season after season, under the gentle, watchful light of the twin moons.